Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunshine Coast Regional District Special Emergency Board Meeting of Friday, August 27th, 2021. We are, I'm going to call us to order at 10:03 p.m. a.m. And I'd like to start off by acknowledging that the Sunshine Coast Regional District operates on the traditional territories of the Seashelt and the Squamish First Nations, and we are joining you from various spots on those traditional territories today. We're very grateful to be here. We have an agenda in front of us today for this emergency meeting. For any of those that are joining us on YouTube, you can find that on scrd.ca on our agendas link under today's date. I'm going to ask first to staff or directors if there's any changes that need to be done to this agenda before we officially move to adopt it. I'll ask for a motion to adopt this agenda, please. So moved, Director McMahon, seconded Director Ties. All those in favor? Thank you, motion carries. I'm going to ask for a motion to receive all reports, please. So moved, Director McMahon, seconded Director Toth. All those in favor? Thank you, motion carries. Being that this is a special and emergency board meeting, we have no minutes, so we have no business arising from minutes or unfinished business. No presentations or delegations today. So we will go specifically and specially into our reports, and the first is a verbal report from our GM of Infrastructure Services, Mr. GM Rosenboom, and who is also the Deputy Director for our EOC 2021 Drought Response. And the first up is our water supply update. GM Rosenboom, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to share my screen with you. And let's hope that it works, that I can get my presentation actually in presentation mode. That does not working at the moment. Hold on. My computer is frozen. Sorry, my apologies. Okay. I have a technical issue here. My computer is frozen.
Remco, is that slide presentation online, and could someone else bring it up and screen share it?
Yeah, it's in the... Hold on a sec, I will quickly resolve this. Oh, okay, I see it. What's going on? Yeah, it's in the EOC general folder. There's a link to it. I'm not sure if somebody can open the file while I'm in it, but it's in the EOC general folder.
I can't share it from here, but I don't know if Tina, if you've got access to that, and you could maybe share the screen.
It'll just take me a minute to log on.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's one thing during a pandemic is we've certainly learned how technology is our best friend and sometimes our worst enemy. It's like the frenemy in high school.
Okay. Back up and running again, Tina. Thank you.
Okay. Working for you?
Yep. Okay, there we go. Sorry for this interruption. So my water supply update today will primarily focus on the Chapman water system. I will indicate that next week, planning and community development meeting, I will provide another short date update that will also include the other systems. What's the current conditions? On last Monday, we activated the emergency drought response, EOC, Emergency Operations Center. And in terms of the status for water supply, we're currently providing water from Chapman Lake through our siphon system, as well as from Atlas Lake through a regular valve that we have operating there. And the picture in the background here is Atlas Lake, but it was about a week ago, so there is currently a lot more shore visible if you were up there. It's benefiting that the average temperatures have dropped from the mid-20s to the low 20s. And we actually received some rain. Last week, Friday, there was about 11 millimeters at the lake. And it was a little bit more around at the slopes of Mount Steele. So in total, it provided us with about 3 days of extra water supply. And yesterday, it rained more here than it did at the lake. At the lake, we only had 6 millimeters of rain. So we have to see how much that will actually provide us in terms of water supply. I don't expect a lot. We've done some updated estimates, and with the current community demand, which is less than 11,000 cubic meters a day, we should be fine if we stay in stage 4 until late September in terms of water supply, which is better than it was 2 weeks ago when it was mid to late September. And now I can, certainly I can say that we can meet late September for sure. So this is Chapman Lake last Sunday, and what happened since is that the lake that's visible in the background, that has dropped a couple of feet. And maybe you can remember earlier on, there were still some orange buoys visible here. They're now, of course, dropping with the dropping water levels because those are the buoys that are holding up the intake of the lake, of the siphons. So the channel is now almost completely dry, and the lake in the back is dropping as well as Atlas Lake is dropping inches a day as well. So the daily water use has gone down substantially last week. We are currently hovering around 11,000 cubic meters a day. And if you compare that to where we were during the heat dome, we were above 25. So, which is really good to see. The average winter demand is about 10, and given that we currently have more people on the coast than on an average winter day, I think us being around 10 is what I was hoping for. So I really hope that as a community we can stay around in the low 10s, 10,000 cubic meters a day. So why did we activate the EOC? The objective of the EOC is really to ensure that there's adequate water supply for drinking water, health, and firefighting if the drought continues into early fall. And why is that of a concern for us that we might not be able to do that? Because there's still almost no rain in the forecast for the next 2 weeks. The July Environment Canada long-term forecast for the next 3 months is still warm to normal for September and October. And Monday or Tuesday they will release their updated forecast for the upcoming 3 months. So I'm curious to see what they will predict for those months. In 2012 and 2017, the drought really continues until October, sometimes even later in October. So it's not impossible for that to happen. And if our siphon system at Edwards, at Chapman, or our Edwards Lake valve at the lake levels in one of the two systems are so low that both outlets are not operable anymore, we will lose in any of the cases more than 50% of our water supply. So combined, the two systems are currently providing 75% of the water supply. So the intent of the EOC is really to prepare and implement emergency measures as required. So what are we working on? We are working on the development of a siphon system at Edwards comparable to as we currently have in place in Chapman Lake. It will require authorizations from Bishop Parks and Finward, Ministry of Forest, Lands, Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development. And we initiated early this week engagement on those authorizations with those provincial agencies as well as with the Shisha Nation. We still have to finalize the design, but what we're targeting is really that such a system could provide us with several weeks of water supply. So it would really be, it would, yeah, if the drought continues, this would be the main water source for when or Chapman or Edwards would run out of water. So what is currently being initiated: an environmental impact assessment, a geological impact assessment, and archaeological impact assessment, as well as we're doing all the design work. We expect that the total cost is up to $200,000, but given that we're currently still in the early phase of the development, that number can come down when we confirm actual cost. What are the challenges we foresee is just the timeline to complete all the assessments and review by regulators. There is some field work to be completed. We hope to be up there next week to do some of that work, but then still the consultants will need to write the reports. They will need to be submitted to the regulators, and they will need time to review it and make a decision on permit applications. It will be challenging to get all the materials that we need for the siphon in time here, but we're already connected with some potential suppliers, and they might have some materials available for us. And the big unknown is the availability of helicopters when we might need them to install the siphon, and it really depends on the activity of wildfires in the province. Currently, when we're going up, sometimes when we need a helicopter, sometimes there's one available, sometimes not. So, but we hope that by the end of September, the wildfires would allow for a helicopter to be available for a couple of days for us to complete this project. Another thing we're working on with the town of Gibsons is, and we're really pleased that we can work on that with them, is an emergency water supply by them to us. And it's really all has to do with the investments the town of Gibsons has been making the last several years in their water system. That last year they stopped taking water from us, and now they're actually in a position that they might have some excess water they can provide to us. It would be about 1,000 cubic meters a day, which is about 9% of our current demand. And if it would run, if it would be active for about a month, it would provide us with 3 days of extra water supply. Doesn't sound a lot, but those 3 days can really make the difference between running out of water for 3 days or just the big rainstorm until the big rainstorm falls in October. So every day is a day. That's every day. Every extra day of water supply is an extra day of water supply in my mindset at the moment. So the water would be provided to Zone 3. within the SRD, which is the area Elphinstone and Upper Gibsons, outside of the town of Gibsons, West House Sound area. We are currently working on the development of an agreement, and we would pay any incremental cost the town of Gibsons would have in terms of staffing and other operational costs. And the intent is that there would be no, we would provide at the town of Gibsons towards the end of the year in November and December, when we would have, we are expecting to have access amount of water, that we would provide an equal amount to them, so that at the end of the year there is no issues for either of the parties in terms of their annual license amount, that there is any exceedance of that. I know there's a town of Gibsons council meeting scheduled for August 31st to discuss this agreement as well, and it's proposed, if both the board and the town council approves the execution of an agreement that's currently being developed, that it could be commenced in the second week of September after the long weekend. We also have Trout Lake intake. Trout Lake used to be active as an intake. We took it online when we connected the system to the Chapman system, and our intake, our license for that location only allows us to divert about 230 cubic meters a day. So if we run it for a month, it would only provide us with just over half a day of extra water supply, and it would require significant operational and decommissioning efforts. For that reason, we currently have not turned it on yet, but it might change in upcoming weeks. What are we doing in terms of demand management? We launched a campaign on social media called Put a Dent in Your Percent. Residents can go to our Let's Talk Water page, and there's a platform for residents to share all kind of water conservation efforts. And we are posting on a daily basis the community demand, so that the community can see what the result of their conservation efforts are on a daily basis. We are sending shut-off notifications to commercial and residential properties with large leaks. They are being sent at the moment, and those large leaks are identified early, are confirmed early this week that they are still large, and so we give the residents and commercial entities little over a week to make sure that their leaks are fixed, and otherwise their water will be shut off. We also are sending letters to residents with water use that's well above the average. There's still some high water users, and those will be sent early next week based on the most recent August read data, water meter data. If we encounter no compliance, we won't issue a warning anymore, but we will immediately are going over to fines. As of today, BC Ferry will do announcements on both ferries, Swartz Bay, Earls Cove, as well as Langdale, Horseshoe Bay, about the fact that there's water shortage on the coast, and requesting residents to be mindful in terms of their water use, and that more information on that can be found at the SRD website. And there's a bulk water station in Langdale for people with that need large volumes of water, over 1,000 liters. They can connect with the SRD, and then we can help them with securing water from the Langdale well system. What we are exploring, and I want to stress that this is exploring. We're exploring what kind of powers would we receive if a local state of emergency would be declared. And one of the things that we're looking at is what would be the powers to restrict non-essential high water users. So let's say if our Edward system, siphon system, for some reason cannot be completed, if we are not able to successfully get it commissioned in time, we might need to call a state of emergency and restrict any non-essential high water use. And adequate notice will be provided. It won't be a decision or something that we would propose out of the blue. So businesses and other potential non-essential users can be sure that they can see this coming. And when I say non-essential high water users, it's really we have not defined the list yet what that actually includes, but everything that's not related to drinking water, health, or firefighting could be considered at that point in time. And that is a high user. So what is the timeline for next steps? We're currently putting a lot of effort in more detailed water supply forecasting. And I will provide an update on that next week, Thursday, at the Planning and Community Development Committee meeting. And as indicated earlier, early next week, the updated long-range forecast from America and Canada will also be released. So I will, that would allow us to update our water supply forecasting as well. And at the September 9 Infrastructure Services Committee meeting, I will provide another full water supply update, and we'll provide more information on the status of all the emergency measures we currently are implementing. And I'm more than happy to take any questions you will have.
Great. Thank you, Remco. I will look to directors if you have any questions. I'm going to start with Director McMahon, please.
Thank you. I'm getting lots of questions from the community about leaks. So how many water shutoff notifications are we talking about here that sent out, roughly? Thanks.
Several dozen. There are quite some in the commercial sector. What we've done over the last several weeks, we connected with top 25 commercial users and discussed their water consumption with them. And amongst them, there are also several that still have leaks. And so they will receive a letter. And same as all the high users, and there are also a couple of dozen on the residential side that will receive such notices in the upcoming week.
Just a quick follow-up. I believe all the commercial users are on meters. Is that not the case?
Yeah, that's correct. All the commercial are in meters, but so they're now paying for water they're leaking, but that's their choice. But the fact that they're leaking is of concern at this point in the current situation.
Okay. Next up, I have Director Tice, please.
Yeah, I guess as a follow-up to that, do we have an estimate of the volume that all those commercial users and the high residential users would save us if they were all shut off? Is that enough to bring us to the level that we would need if both Edwards and Chapman were no longer available?
No. The answer is no. It's given that we're using 10,000 cubic meters a day, and some of those leaks might be large in the context of average use, let's say 40,000 liters a day. That's 40,000 liters a day. Well, that's only 40 cubes a day, while we're using 10,000 cubes on a community basis. So leaks alone, all the leaks effort that we're doing at this moment, will only maybe twice a day at max. However, every day is a day, and I can clarify the leak resolutions and setting up these kind of notifications. It's something that we do throughout the year as well, but it's really what we're focusing now is we just expanded. We lowered the threshold for people getting such a letter.
Okay, I'm going to go, I have a question myself regarding communications. If you could comment, or either yourself, GM Rosenboom, or maybe our corporate officer, as it falls underneath her purview with communications. I want to know how we're coordinating with our other local governments in communicating out about what we're doing, and if you could just speak on how that coordination is working.
I see that our manager of communication is also online, so maybe you can take the question. Thank you, Aiden.
No problem. I'm happy to take that question. Yeah, so we've been sharing all of our information with the other communications people and at the other local governments here on the coast. They've already reached out, asked us what they can do to assist in any way, shape, or form, and already we're seeing that sharing across social media. So I hope that assists for now.
That's fantastic, and it's good news too that BC Ferries is now also communicating on the ferry. So I know that certainly helps. Next up, I have Director Hiltz, and then I'm going to go to Director Mann, and then back to Director Ties.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for all the information, and it's clear that the public have responded. So really, lots of thanks to the communications and that the public really has responded. So that's the first thing. A question about the Edwards siphon. Edwards. This is not a for sure kind of backup plan at this point, because you need the pipes, you got to install, and it's more challenging, I'm thinking, than the Chapman because of the distance. So it'd be more taxing on staff as well. So just to be clear to the public that the Edwards siphon can help, but getting it in place is not a for sure thing at this point. So just clarifying about the certainty of that emergency response.
Yeah, thank you for those remarks. Yes, Edward siphon system will be challenging also just in terms of the size of the dam and the configuration around the dam. It's a lot smaller dam, so there's less room to work there. In terms of distance, that's not for when you're flying in with helicopter. Distance is not really an issue. So, but early next week, staff are going up there to actually do the post layout on the land and see how we can fit everything in a couple of square meters that we have available there. So for now, we're hopeful, but I agree with you. Also, with all the assessments that still need to be done, fish trapping, we need to be done, impacts on wildlife. There are wetlands in the back of the lake. We still have to do some serious work there, and so it will be a lot of work in a short amount of time, and things need to fall apart, need to align nicely.
Okay, Director McMahon.
Yes, I assume that we are working with Vancouver Coastal Health and the school district and Sunshine Coast Tourism at this point. I'm guessing the schools don't use a huge amount of water, but they would be considered essential services. And are we looking at discouraging tourists from coming? That question has arisen a few times.
Thank you for the question. Schools are, of course, considered part of the the drinking water category as something that will need to continue to be provided with water. And we're currently not in the stage yet that we're actively discouraging residents to come here. Or at least we don't have those kind of discussions yet with the province on how to do that and if they would actually support it. And I think in upcoming weeks we will have more discussions with EMBC, Emergency Management BC, and that will be definitely one thing that will be discussed there. And but I think also the updated water supply presentation that we'll do, that we're currently working on, the more detailed forecasting might also provide us with a better insight in what would actually the benefit of that be of that. Yes, every day helps, but I don't think that after the Labor Day long weekend, tourism is the biggest drive for the consumption on the coast anymore, as it is now.
Okay, up next, I have Director Ties and then Director Beamish.
Thank you. Yeah, as I understand it, Great Creek is also fed by Edwards Lake. So I'm wondering if we're doing sort of a rob Peter to pay Paul, because we're also drawing water out of Great Creek. Will there be a sufficient flow to keep taking water out of Great Creek, even if we're siphoning Edwards?
Thank you for the question. You're correct in the sense that if Edwards Lake is full, it's draining both sides towards Great Creek. It's formerly located within the Great Creek watershed in the early 90s. The dam was constructed and the outlet towards Chapman was expanded. There was already always a natural outlet there. But we put a dam in. We created the dam and ensured that outlet was more bigger, so that we can actually use it as an infrastructure. The lake levels are currently such. The moment the water drops a little bit, all the flow towards Great Creek stops anyway. So it used to be a more isolated lake during the summer months, because only when it's really high overflowing in the winter, then there's outflow towards Great Creek. During this, during our natural operations, there's already no outlet towards Great Creek, and we can draw it down under our current license towards -3 meters. And at that point in time, there was no outlet to Great Creek, so all the water that would go out of the lake would go out to Chapman, and the siphon system would. So hence the siphon system would not decrease outflow towards Great Creek.
Okay, Director Beamish.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for that update. Very helpful. And I wonder, Remco, if you would be prepared to give that same presentation on Tuesday at 3:00 to our council. That's when we're having our special meeting and be considering the water. And I think it'd be very useful to have that presentation.
Yeah, I will be present there.
Yeah. And I also acknowledge that our staffs are working very hard together to make that happen, and I look forward to a successful meeting on Tuesday.
Great. Thank you, Director Beamish. Yes, it's great to see how our local governments are working very hard together across the coast to communicate, as well as to deploy things like the siphon between the town of Gibsons and the SCRD to make that happen as well. I have Director McMahon and then Director Ties.
Thank you. I appreciate staff are fully extended, or probably more than fully extended, dealing with the emergency right now. But I am very concerned that we also be looking at the long-term situation, or that maybe you'd call it the midterm situation, but next summer. It's bad enough we're in this pickle now, but we really don't want to be in this situation again next summer. So I guess that's more of a CAO question, but when are we going to really evaluate the projects that we have in the pipeline? Sorry about that. Projects that we have in line right now to see realistically which ones we can get online fast and whether we have to reprioritize and what kind of help we can get from the province to get more water before we're back to this emergency situation next summer. Any thoughts from staff on that one?
Well, before we go to staff, I'd like to just drop the gauntlet and say that a lot of the reason we're in this situation right now is because of the province and the lack of movement on their side. So I have no problem saying that anymore. And I'm incredibly frustrated and angry by where we are right now. And this is incredibly frustrating from all aspects, and we're moving to do as much as we can here. And I'm sure the CAO will also, comment from the staff perspective. But if we want to reprioritize things as a board, then we do need to motivate that and give staff direction on that as well. So, but first over to the CAO.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to provide some general comments, and if GM Rosenboom would like to expand on anything, that's absolutely fine. From a macro level, we're looking at everything, absolutely everything, and we're meeting regularly. We're meeting regularly with the province. We've now, thanks to working recently with Gibsons on looking at an emergency water supply to aid us during this time. We're also looking at ways that we could expand on that moving forward. We're leaving no stone unturned in trying to be in a position to be better equipped for water supply in the future, but also knowing that next year we could be right back in this situation depending on the timing of receiving the license and getting the project underway. And if Remco has anything to add, please feel free, Remco.
No, I think well said. I don't have anything to add at the moment. It's the timeline, the timing of the issuance of the water license or the confirmation of where we are at. If we can expect a water license and what the terms and conditions would be, that will really allow us to start tendering of that. And the tender will be shaped such that we really hope that we can get it online, that we can get church online prior to the end of next summer. So that's the intent. That will continue to be the intent, and it's not impossible yet.
Have we lost Lori?
Or is she muted?
Andreas, are you there? Sorry, I turned off my microphone. And you can't see my
Yeah.
mouth moving because I've got my mask on. I'm so sorry. I forgot to turn my mic on. Andreas? Everything-
Okay,
Sorry.
there we go. I was waiting. Well, on a positive note, I guess we might not have to worry about having to run for re-election if we find ourselves in the same boat again next year. But I guess my question is, what is the last resort plan? What if we do run out of Chapman and Edwards? Do we have any idea what that looks like?
Thank you for that question. It's a question that we're answering at this moment as well as staff. And I'm saying answering because it's not an answer that we already have prepared. It's a situation that we've never had to experience before. However, our current efforts are all focused on, at least this week, and I think it will be next week as well, on getting our so-called ducks in a row for the measures to prevent that from happening, and at the same time work on how would it look like if something were to fail. So what I can say there is maybe not next week, but the week afterwards, I will definitely elaborate a little bit more on what it could look like, so that the community knows that as well. But our efforts currently are all hands on deck on getting more water into the system.
Follow up, I think it's essential that we let the community know what the worst case scenario is,
Yeah.
so that people actually do what they need to do.
And what I can say is that's why I included that number about if we were to lose, if efforts were not successful, the development of that siphon system, we would lose more than 50% of our water supply. And so it would be really dire situation. So hence, we will do everything we can and work with the regulators and the consultant, and that's where our focus currently is on, because time is not our friend. So that's where the focus is currently on.
Thank you. I'm going to put Director Toth to the top of the speakers list just because he hasn't had a chance yet, and then we'll go to Director Hiltz and then Director McMahon. So Director Toth?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to follow up on the Church Road a little bit. Couple of questions. You know, how if we receive our approvals from the province, how quickly can we go to RFP on that project? Is there any way to speed up either the construction timeline or the RFP process timeline? Can we pre-qualify vendors? And the last question is, have we already put in our paperwork with MOTI, BC Hydro, what have you, to get pre-approvals for the other authorizations we're going to need?
Thank you. I will start with the last part of the question. Yes, BC Hydro, Vancouver Coastal Health, Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure, we're all actively working with them to secure authorizations. In terms of the tender itself, it has been drafted. It's sitting. We can finalize it the moment we know the exact terms and conditions of the license. And if there's any changes compared to where we expect it to be, we might need to do some amendments. This is more a discussion to be had at that point in time, but we might even release the tender once we heard from the Squamish what their Squamish Nation what their feedback is, prior to the province actually completing their the document itself, the license document itself. But that would be a risk assessment we would have to do at that point in time. So and as part of the tendering itself, we are exploring tools to incentivize early completion of the project.
Okay. Director Hiltz and then Director McMahon.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, a question about the Langdale bulk water station. Just if there's some details about who would have access to this and kind of the staffing. Like you don't just go up and hook up a thing, and there's some preparation. So there's a targeted audience for this. So is it potable water? Like people are not going to go there for watering their plants, right? So this is drinking water. So if you could just have some context around what that station is to be for.
Thank you for the question. The station is, as I indicated, is for if there's a need for more than 1,000 liters. So it's larger amounts. People can connect with the SRD. We'll make an appointment. We'll make sure that there is a staff member at site. It will be at the hydrant. We will operate the hydrant, and from the hydrant we can fill somebody's tow tank, cistern, whatever they have on their truck or trailer. And it's most commonly currently used by contractors. Some of our own contractors are using it for water main construction projects, but our landfill construction project has also been using it.
So just the location in Langdale, whereabouts is it in Langdale?
It's close to the terminal, but if residents connect with the SRD, then we'll make an appointment and they will provide them with the exact location.
Connect with staff first and then sort out details. Great,
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just calling the main line at the 885-6800 or the infrastructure department email?
Yep. Infrastructure@srd.ca, and we'll set something up. And to confirm, it's the primary focus is people that are needing, or companies that need a large amount of water and they're not able to use that the current their usual water supply from the Chapman system.
Great. Thank you very much, GM Rosenboom. Next up, Director McMahon.
Great. I had two topics. I just wanted to go back briefly to leaks and say that I really appreciate staff following up aggressively on some of these large leaks, even if it's not going to save our bacon. There's a concern about equity, because a lot of people in my community are going to really extreme measures to try and save water. So they're very frustrated when they see, property owners or commercial enterprises that have large leaks. It makes your, saving the bathwater seem kind of futile. So it's really important that we crack down on that. Regarding our long-term situation, I still think as a board that we need to strategize here about working with the province. And, with respect to the letter that we recently sent, I appreciate that, but perhaps it could have been more blunt, saying that we are going to run out of water if the situation doesn't change. I don't think we said that in that many words, and we need to be absolutely clear with the province that we're between a rock and a hard place here, and we need help from senior government to move any barriers that are in our way. So perhaps we can have that discussion as a board at our next board meeting, about how we're going to advocate with the province. Thanks.
Thank you, Director McMahon. Next up, I have Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. This is a curiosity question. I was wondering if we could up the Trout Lake water license, and of course that would only be appropriate if in fact Trout Lake could supply more than the 227. But have we looked at both aspects of that one, or do we know the answer to those two?
Thank you for the question. Increasing the water supply from Trout Lake would definitely require significant environmental studies, especially because there are some protected species at the lake, in the lake. So it would not be a straightforward assessment, and it would actually require, I think, very complex or more complex authorization process with several agencies involved. And I'm not sure if how much our infrastructure can handle it. But I will work with staff to explore it a little bit further, if that's even an option, maybe for future years.
Okay, I have Director Beamish, and then I'm going to move us on to the next item on our agenda. Director Beamish?
Yes, hi. Not to let the province off the hook, because I think it's important. we keep their attention. But I do understand, talking to our staff, that the issue on the Sunshine Coast is their top priority at the present time. And so that I understand they're working very well with both of our staffs to try to get the Church Road well resolved and any other issues that the regional district has. So I think that we want to continue that good working relationship with them.
Thank you, Director Beamish. I'm going to challenge that because when we were promised in 2019 by former Minister of Forest Lands, Natural Resources and Rural Development that this was going to be of the highest priority, in 2019, 2 years ago, in September at UBCM, because this is a health and safety issue for the Sunshine Coast. And yet here we are 2 years later, we're no further along. I understand that the working relationship is gone well. However, the expediency of this has shown glaring gaps in their assessment of what an actual emergency is. Here we are, we're 2 years later, and we still don't have a license in hand. So the province does have gaps in their approval process, and it's probably just as well I'm wearing a mask because I'm mad. So with that, before I go on a rant, or more of a rant, I should say, I'm going to move us on to Annex A of our agenda, which is the financial implications of the EOC 2021 drought response, pages 1 through 4 of your agenda package. And over to GM Rosenboom as the Infrastructure Services GM, as well as the Deputy Director for our EOC. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide an overview of the financial implications of the activation of the EOC. The report outlines that there are actually two types of expenditures, or maybe even three types of expenditures to be expected. One is the actual staffing of the EOC itself, the administration. There's a significant more staff currently involved in the EOC than during a regular drought response activities we're occurring. And that's all has to do with making sure that decisions are made in a timely and coordinated manner. So what we did in terms of estimating those costs, we looked at previous EOC activations, and we did a forecast on what it would look like if this EOC were to be activated until mid-October. Besides, we estimated what it would cost to deploy or to develop that siphon system at Edwards Lake. That's expected to be about $200,000. However, there's contingency already built in there. That is a maximum amount that we expect it to be less than that. But given the circumstances, we don't want to get back to we want to avoid the need to go back to the board next week. Like we can't complete it because we're running out of money because we cannot afford a time delay. In terms of the emergency water supply, Town of Gibsons provided us with the number that their incremental cost would not exceed $35,000, and I included an amount for Trout Lake for if we decide to turn that on as well. And primarily those costs would be staffing costs and treatment costs. Because we would need to install a treatment facility there. So the total costs currently are expected to just be above $400,000, $417,500. All the operational costs, $217,500. We think we can absorb that within our current existing budget for regional water service. The capital expenditures of $200,000, we are proposing to fund those out of the capital reserves for the system, and which are in order of magnitude of several million dollars. And it's worth to note that, of course, any surplus that will still be there when the EOC activation is concluded will, of course, flow back into the operational or capital reserves of the regional water system service. So, and it's worth to note that we're working actively with Emergency Management BC to define what kind of costs might be eligible for reimbursement under the Disaster Financial Assistance Program. What is relevant to note there is that this is one of the first EU's Emergency Operations Center ever set up in BC for drought response. So they're struggling themselves as well in terms of what is eligible in terms of funding is and not. And we will have further conversations with the EMBC on that next week. Thank you. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, GM Rosenboom. Just a quick question that just occurred to me. It's so EMBC falls under which provincial ministry?
Emergency Management BC is part of Attorney General.
Okay. So being that the silos that do exist within provincial ministries, as we are so fondly aware of, I'm wondering if that is being communicated to the other entities that we're also waiting on in regards to the water license, like, for example, Flynn Road, Ministry of Environment, other ones as well, that so it's really clear to them that we have declared a state, we have activated our Emergency Operations Center. I'm curious, are we being proactive in that, or does EMBC also, do they look at that as part of the, as part of their guidance and governance?
Thank you for the question. At the day the EOC was activated, all ministries and other parties we're working with on our, for example, our Church Road well license were notified. And I know from experience that when an EOC is activated, for example, on drought or on flood response, EMBC usually also connects with, for example, the Ministry of Flynn Road to get obtain technical expertise to support them. So as part of the provincial work in response to our EOC activation, staff from Flynn Road would be involved in this response.
You know what? I need to keep on remembering to turn the mic back on. So thank you, GM Rosenboom. Over to Director Ties, please.
Thank you. Considering we don't have a plan B, I'm willing to move the recommendations as listed in the agenda. I don't have the page number right now.
Page number 1.
Page number 1.
Okay. So moved by Director Ties. I saw Director Toth as a second. Director Ties, did you wish to speak to this as the motivator of these recommendations?
No, I think it's these recommendations are something that is necessary at this point in time, and because, as I said, we don't have a plan B.
Next up, I have Director Hiltz, please.
Thanks, Jerry. Yeah, I'm just interested in what the state of our reserve funds are at the current time. Like, I'm assuming there's enough, but like, how much of a cushion is there in the reserves? Do we have a up-to-date number of those reserve values?
I know that our CFO might be able to have them, the reserve value.
Yeah, so the regional water capital reserves uncommitted balance at the end of July was approximately 4.5 million. And our operational uncommitted is about 1.6 million.
Okay. Thank you, CFO Perot. Okay, any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, I will call the question on the floor regarding the recommendations on page 1 of Annex A. And remember, this is all directors and it is a weighted vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, so with that, if there's nothing else on this from staff or directors, I'm not seeing anything. Director McMahon.
Should we request a meeting with the Premier? Our meetings at UBCM are not noted for being very productive of results. And I've had a number of constituents ask me, why aren't you calling the Premier? So I throw that out there.
It's a good question, Director McMahon, and based on the way our meeting requests are getting shuffled around and we're waiting still on confirmation, we can certainly put that forward. I'm going to go to Director Ties first and then see if we have another additional motion that comes out of this. Director Ties?
Mine was on a different matter. I wanted to say a big thank you to staff for the amount of work they must have put in the last few weeks, especially Remco and his team. And I want to say that it's not gone unnoticed. So thank you, and don't go on Facebook. There's no point.
Thank you, Director Ties, and that's it's certainly. I think we can all agree with that. This has been an incredible amount of work that all of our staff has been working on, and including with there's I know there's an incredible amount of work that just goes into going up to check on the siphon because it is an all-day event to hike in and hike out, and so even outside of our infrastructure department, I know there's been other staff that have gone up as well to be part of the team that goes up there because they can't go up. You can't go up alone. So there, this is really it's a team SCRD approach, and along with within the Team Sunshine Coast approach. So thank you to all of our staff for all of the work you're doing on this, and also thank you to the residents that are taking this seriously about the situation that we are in. I have Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. On a letter to the Premier, I understand, though, that there is a chance we could get some status on the Church Road wellfield license within weeks. Am I under the correct impression, or are we months, years away? I believe. Oh, thank you.
Jim Rosenboom.
Thank you for the question. Yesterday, I received confirmation that Commerce is expecting to provide a response letter on the latest information they received within the upcoming couple of weeks, and so that it will depend on what that letter includes, if that would allow for next steps in terms of licensing to be initiated right away, or further discussion would need to happen. But there's definitely movement on that side as well. Thank you.
Okay. Over to Director McMahon.
Yes, I'm just wondering if the province is providing adequate support and resourcing to the Squamish to respond to our water license referral.
Well, I think it's becoming obvious. I'm going to go on the political rant again because I think it's pretty obvious that our provincial and federal governments are not providing enough support to local governments and First Nations when it comes to reconciliation and actually looking at consultation. And that's part of the issue that we're coming up against here. Or from where I'm seeing it as it moves forward, is this, they do need to provide more capacity and more guidance around what meaningful consultation is. And we've seen this in other issues across our province and across other jurisdictions where nobody is really sure on how we move these things forward. And it's not meaningful consultation if you're not actually sitting down and having the conversations. So this, I don't think we've seen that yet, Director McMahon. I think that's my political take on it, is the province needs to do better and the feds need to do better, and they're not. I'll go back to you.
Then I'm going to make a motion that we request a meeting with the Premier to help him understand the gravity of our situation and the assistance that we need from senior government.
Before I ask for a seconder for that, I do know that we have we've followed up on the meeting requests that we had made of the Premier that were pushed off to other ministries. So I think that motion would go in great lockstep with the other one. So I would look for a seconder on that. I see a seconder from Director Lee. Director McMahon, further? Anyone else on this item? I'm going to ask our recorder. Jennifer, did you get that?
Thank you. I have that the Sunshine Coast Board sent a letter to Premier Horgan requesting a meeting to address the Sunshine Coast water supply emergency.
Director McMahon, does that?
I actually just said request a meeting with the Premier. I'm not sure whether sending a letter is a necessary part of that. Can't we just phone the Premier's office and say we want a meeting?
Yeah, so specifically requesting a meeting regarding the water supply on the Sunshine Coast.
Thank you. I'll make that amendment.
Thank you. So that's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay. I'm going to move us through the rest of our meeting. We have no communications, no motions, no bylaws. Being that this is a special emergency board meeting, we will not be asking for directors' reports. We have no new business, no in-camera, and so with that, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn, please. So move Director Toth, seconded Director Hiltz. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Over to our public gallery. We have a few people sitting in there. If any one of you would like to ask a question, if you could please raise your hand and we will bring you into the meeting so you can have an opportunity to ask. Not seeing any hands raised. IT have any questions come in? Give it just another moment and we'll shut her down. No questions received. Thank you, IT. No questions from our attendees in the audience. Okay. With that, thank you everyone for making time today. And I'll calm down at some point, I know, but thank you all for being here, and we will see you around. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.